Hey, hey, hey. Come on in, come on in. Happy Saturday. Happy Saturday. Come on in. Come on in. Come on in. Hit the like button as you come on in. We got some things to talk about. We are going to continue our conversation that we've been having this week during my edition of or my series of Car Chronicles. But today, I'm not in the car. I got time today. So I am comfortable in my studio. Come on in. Come on in. Let's talk about it. Let's get into some things. There's so much going on. So much to be said. I'm going to be honest, like my thoughts are really all over the place as far as with the things that are going on. Come on in, come on in. I got some things to say. I want to hear what you all have to say. I want to get into the comments, see what you all have to say, respond since I'm not behind the wheel driving. Welcome those of you who are new to my channel, who've recently started following me since I've been discussing just all of the things politically that has been transpiring within our country, the USA. Sharing my opinions, strong opinions. Some of you may be here for them, some of you may not, but I come out here to promote conversation, healthy conversations, so we can just talk about the things that are going on. Currently, what has my attention is the Department of Health and just trying to gain an understanding as to how it will impact the people in large, because it's when I think about just the Department of Education, I think about it on the level of, okay, the quality of the American schools. So I think about it from that standpoint. But then now it's like I'm also giving thought to it from the place of just with the funding for those who are currently receiving federal funds due to higher education. I have experience, receiving funding from higher education. I have a college age son who's currently second year in college, who's receiving funds through, for college education. So there's just different levels that the Department of Education kind of impacts us. And some of us, we use it and some of us, we don't. I would say the ones, I guess, who aren't impacted by this are those who do not have children in the public school systems, those who do not have children who are receiving higher education, and those who are not themselves receiving higher education. So I feel like the bulk of the Americans are going to fall into, one of those categories where, they have children in the public schools. They're currently in school themselves, working on a college degree, or they're putting a child, an adult child, through college, and they are receiving federal funds to help with that. So with that being said, to me, it's a serious topic, and I want to hear as many people's thoughts about it as possible, because when I think about it, I talked about in one of my lives this week that sometimes people don't really take situations seriously until it kind of hits home and starts to impact them. And then it's just like, oh, they start to really see the clarity of things. So this whole Department of Education, I think, it's starting to hit people very differently because it hits home. It's impacting them directly. Whereas, say, when it comes to the immigration, I'm Black American, born here, lived no other place. So the immigration situation, it's more of like a direct impact as far as with, okay, if immigration is enforced, this is how I can kind of be impacted, just kind of like indirectly. It's not a direct impact. But those who it is a direct impact for, baby, let me tell you, y'all know I be coming coming here with the stories. So this morning, I got up and went to my local DMV. My youngest child is 15. So I went there to take her to test to get her learner's permit. And as we were driving up in the parking lot, I'm like, wow, my husband and I took notice that it was like a lot of cars in the parking lot. So I live out in the suburbs. I'm kind of out in the country. I live in Georgia, but I'm like outside of the city. So I'm in the suburbs, so like closer to where it's like country. So my DMV don't be all packed like some other DMVs in the more populated areas. So you might be good to see maybe about 8 cars, maybe, and on a Saturday, if that, in the parking lot, the DMV. But child, it was about 20, 25, 30 vehicles, in the parking lot. So I'm like, okay. So we go inside of the DMV and it's like packed. And I'm like, wow. So then I took notice of the demographics as far as with, what the people look like that were in the DMV. And it was 90% people from the Hispanic community in the DMV. So they were kind of, different sections, sitting down, waiting for the number to be called, waiting in line, trying to, talk to someone the best they can, because some of them couldn't really speak English that well. So the employees were trying to do their best to understand what it was that these particular people needed as far as with trying to get whatever it is they came to get. But nonetheless, child, these people were here trying to get their affairs in order. When I say affairs, I mean they were there trying to get like the IDs, the driver's license, listen, all of the government like IDs that here in America as citizen that we kind of already have. They're trying to get it for the very first time. So I'm like, my. Why the rush? Why now? So what it's giving is that, okay, I can't be riding dirty no more. That has come to an end. I got to get my affairs in order because then these folks roll it up on us, and I need to be able to have something to pull out to show them so I won't get hauled off in the paddy wagon. So that is what I saw. And I took video of it because I want to show it. I want to, send it to my mom, like, check this out, because this is not, I had never seen just that many people just from the Hispanic community in my local DMV, just within the community I live. It's not heavily populated like with a lot of Hispanics. So I just took notice of that. But it had me to see, the message it sent was that people are now trying to take serious with getting proper documentation. You know what I'm saying? Because having a driver's license to drive, like legit, they are getting this for the first time. We weren't talking about coming there. You know how you got to get some renewed. It expired. No, they just didn't even have it out the jump. So they're there trying to get it for the first time. I can't tell you how many times I done heard people here talk about having, experiencing hit and runs from someone where they were able to see what the person looked like, and they were able to identify it being a Hispanic, and they hit you, literally hit and run. And I remember my sister, she had went into a parking garage. This probably had been about maybe 12 years ago, maybe even a little longer. She was in a parking garage at like a hospital, and they have a parking garage. And it was a Hispanic man and his wife, whatever. And he had like this big old pickup truck, and he went to squeeze. So anybody know about these parking garages? I know here in Atlanta and Georgia, like the parking spots are super tight. My office, is in a parking garage. So I just hate driving in there because it's super tight. So if you have like a big vehicle, it's hard to kind of fit in. So she had a small vehicle at the time. The truck was like one of them, I think like them F-150 to F-250 type trucks. She said the man literally squeezed into a parking spot, and like his vehicle was like all on top of her like vehicle, like physically, like the way, I don't know. She's like looking at him like, and he's like literally trying to make it work. And she's like, what? And so she's like, okay, we got to call and report this in. He's like, hey, I got cash. You don't do that. Here, I'll pay, whatever. She still calls to the police to do what we do here in the USA and report it. Someone comes out, takes the report. He gets hauled off because why? No insurance, no driver's license, none of that. He didn't speak English very well, but he was like, to keep the police from being involved, he was like, yo, like, I got this money, I can pay you. How many of you all have experience hearing someone say, hey, let's just handle this between us. We don't have to get them folks involved. My mother also experienced, a hit and run where a young lady, this was maybe about 3 years ago, where a young lady hit her from the behind. They both pulled off to the side. My mom does what she's supposed to do, call 911. In the midst of waiting for 911 to come, the girl takes off driving. So my mama, being the American Black woman she is, she follows the girl because she's wanting to try to get this woman's like driver's license and driver's plate. I'm sorry, the plate, because she's running. My mom, I think she was still on the phone with the 911 when she was calling to report it, because remember, the person hit her from behind, so she didn't know their information. She was just sitting in the car waiting for police to show up, but she had to kind of follow this lady, so she could get the information to be able to report the lady's information. So eventually, I guess the young lady sees that she's being followed, so she does pull over, and eventually, the police comes and things like that. So these are just a couple of stories where I know of people personally who have encountered accidents and things like that, fender benders or whatever you want to call it, and it's involving someone who's giving not here legally. And the way they have chosen to handle it was to throw their money around or just drive off. So this is a thing. So I found it quite interesting when I saw like an influx of the Hispanic, people of the Hispanic community at the DMV trying to get their driving docs, government IDs, like in order in place, which kind of like should have been done. If you're here legally, what's the holdup? Why not go and take care of that? So, hey, Iman, welcome. She says, these immigrants see things are getting serious. Yes, that was what I saw. I'm like, they're like, oh, these folks ain't playing out here. I have heard that where I live, within the county I live, ICE has been, out in my area doing their roundups to pick up people, verifying identifications in heavily populated Hispanic communities. So that has been taking place here. So back to the Department of Education. So I wanted to talk about, yes, the immigration again, to show that there is an aspect of what is going on that I am strongly here for. I am strongly here for the, regulations centered around the immigration, because I think it's out of control. I just think that anybody who's over here should just be over here legally, point blank, period. This is the expectation when we go to other countries. So I don't understand why we can't have that expectation when people come over here. Now, when it comes to the Department of Education, this is the area to where it's more of a direct impact of me, and why I want to come out here and talk about it, because I want to just talk about the pros and the cons of the Department of Education. So on a smaller level, the smaller level, when it comes to our local education systems, like everybody know, America just talked about very badly about the quality of our education. It's not the best. It's not the best. I don't think anybody really running around arguing that it is top notch, but it's the school system that we do have. So the question is, okay, what drives the quality of the school system? Is it driven from, the local government administration, meaning like your state level? Because President Trump is trying to say, hey, let's just abolish the Department of Education and kick it back to the state level. So, or is, the quality of our second part, the other alternative as far as to speak to the quality of our education, is it rooted in state, local politics, or is it rooted in just from the federal level, the higher up, the decisions that they make as far as with processes that are in line that trickles down to the lower levels, which is which dictates how the states operate their local school systems. So that's really what I want to talk about, because I my children are a part of the currently at this point in their lives a part of the public school system. There has been different times in their lives where they were not, where they were in a private setting for schools. But for the last, probably consistently, the last 8 years, they have been maybe 7 years. They have been a part of the public school systems. But strategically, when my husband and I made that decision to put our children in the public school system, it was important for us to do it in a certain area. How many of you all live in areas to where your local schools are not good, but communities up the way, maybe in another county, 20 minutes away, where their schools are better quality? The quality of the schools is driven by the quality of the neighborhoods. It works hand in hand because the neighborhoods feed into the schools. That's why here, I don't know how it is in other states, but in the state of Georgia, your child can only go to the school that's designated for your community, which is dictated by your mailing address, by your zip code. That's how it works here in the state of Georgia. If you live somewhere else in another state and it works differently, please let me know in the comments. How does it work? How does it work, or how is it regulated as far as with like the schools that your children can go to when it's a public school? So that's how it is here. So a lot of parents who here in Georgia who are very serious about education, they will strategically move to communities that are known to have a higher quality of education. Same as, parents who have children who are athletes. They will relocate and go into communities where the sports are better quality. The schools have better reputation of winning, things like that. Like here in the South, that's really big, especially when it comes to like sports, probably more so than the education, where people are kind of moving around, centered around the sports. I think from what I see, is at least it's more talked about when it's centered around the sports versus people having conversations, moving into communities based on the from the academic, the school quality, the scholastic quality. People not really even talking a lot about that as far as with picking up and relocating for that reason. But for me and members in my family, those of us who are parents, my sister, like this is how we've made our decision on where our children attend school. So with that being said, for me, the public schools that my children currently go to are schools that are performing well within the state of Georgia, which is where I live. But I do understand that is not the case for everyone. Probably not a lot of people, especially people who are ethnic, people who are Black, people who are Hispanic. What I have noticed, I did this research some years ago, and I was looking at just the number or the percentage of children who receive what do you call that? Reduced lunch, free or reduced lunch. And in my findings, what I found is that, I came to learn this information by researching schools based off of the testing, the performance levels, things like that. When my husband and I were looking into removing our children from private school into public school. So I came across this website. I can't even remember it now, but it was a website I would go to, and it would have all the schools in the state, and it'll show the ranking, and it'll show like their, test scores, how many children are receiving free or reduced lunch, things like that. What I noticed is that the schools that had the highest number of Hispanics and the highest number of Black children were the schools that were performing at the bottom in comparison to the schools that had higher number white kids. So I saw that there was something to that. So again, as I say, your quality of schools is based off of the community, who's feeding into the schools. So a lot of times your help, the resources that are coming into the schools, parents, or they're volunteering, they're a part of the PTA, they're donating, resources and their time, and they live in these houses in these communities outside. A lot of those communities are like 2-parent households, so maybe the mom, she's a stay-at-home mom, so she has more time on her hands to be able to help out and go up to the schools, and participate in things like that, versus like in certain communities where there may be a single parent, or the communities where that the living situation isn't very stable, the resources aren't strong. So with that being said, it's not a lot of the time opportunity to be giving back to the school within the neighborhood. And a lot of times these are people who aren't homeowners, so they're not even vested in the community like that. A lot of times these may be people who move around a lot, because typically someone who's not a homeowner will move more frequently than someone who is a homeowner. Typically, renters move more than someone who's a homeowner. When you really think about it, it makes sense. A homeowner is going to buy a home and stay in it for a good period of time, especially if they have a family, they have children. Someone who is renting, they're more apt to live someplace, maybe a couple of years. And, as they're living there, rent's going up. They live in situation changing, their financial situation may be changing, and they find themselves needing to pick up and relocate. That's the life of a renter versus a homeowner. I grew up, my mother, was a renter. A lot of my life was, she raising me and my siblings as a single parent. So it was a lot of moving for these reasons that I just mentioned. So with that being said, these things impacts the quality of the schools. They impact the quality of the schools. So you have that part. Now let's fast forward, segue to the next level of education where we're getting into college. Now it's time to go to college. The average family in the USA cannot afford to pay the college tuition on their own. Everyone doesn't receive, with the VA loans, if you're familiar with that, where they're able to get, free education or get it at a reduced price. Like they get all these special perks. Been in the military, you former, military, in the military, you get all kinds of perks. You get these benefit discounts on education, discounts when it even comes to purchasing a home, hell, discount going to IHOP. Like wherever you go, there's always these perks, these, discounts that people who were once, in the military are able to, the veterans, the veteran discounts. So the average person wasn't a veteran and they're not getting those type of discounts. So what that means is that they're having to foot the entire bill if there isn't some other program out there that they may be available for. So Department of Education, from what I've learned, the federal student loans, things like that, comes from the Department of Education. So I see that there's a lot of concern going on with some people who are currently in school, because it's like, wait, hold up. Well, I need that funding because I'm still in school. I'm trying to, maybe I'm about to, go into my last year, semester, whatever it may be. I need those funds. Run me my coin. I need it. I need that. That is what I'm dependent on. That's why I have thugged it out, worked really hard to continue to go to school, to get the best grades I can, to keep this money coming in, because anybody who know, federal financial aid do not pay for failed classes. You failed a class, you listen, you better go on and come up with them funds yourself, because you're not going to get paid for those classes. So you got people working their tails off to try to keep their grades up while also working full-time jobs. That's what I did. I wasn't just a full-time student. I was a full-time student and a full-time worker, full-time mom and child, full-time wife. So I had a lot going on. So I understand what it means to need a handout, to need assistance, to need those funds to help you, achieve these goals that you have, which ultimately is for you to be able to have a better life, earn more money, all of that. So, Department of Education, if the disbandment of the Department of Education will mean no more funding or people being able to receive that type of help for higher education, then I'm not here for it. I'm not here for it. What I need to hear is that, okay, well, those of you who are receiving federal funds that's helping you, in higher education, higher learning, this is the alternative we're doing. You're going to get money from this program. I have not heard that yet. I have not heard yet any alternatives for if the federal, the Department of Education were to get disbanded, that those funds that normally come out from that, there'll be funds coming from someplace else. You know what I'm saying? What they say, from Peter to pay Paul. Like, I haven't heard about the alternative. So that's what has me concerned, because it's just like, well, what's going to happen with this, that, and the third? I want to play a video where someone who was, I think she's in Congress, but she used to be an educator, and they're just going to kind of talk about some things centered around the Department of Education and its impact. So this may be beneficial, to some of you to try to understand how the removal of the Department of Education may impact you. So again, when it comes to President Trump, there are some things that I'm like, okay, I see you, I'm here for that. But then there are some where I'm like, not so much. I don't know. I'm trying to learn more, because right now I'm not hearing enough that has me to believe that this is a good reason, or this is a good solution. I need to hear some, what's the alternative? Like, listen, we need more. So let me get into this clip with this educator and, this journalist, this news guy talking about this situation. Fair use. As you come on in, please like, share, and subscribe.
The next department that appears to be on the chopping block is the Department of Education. Just earlier today, Democratic members of Congress were blocked from entering the department's headquarters. Democratic lawmakers had met outside to protest Donald Trump and Elon Musk's plan to abolish the department entirely, as well as attempting to seek a meeting with the department's senior leadership. Lawmakers were not only blocked by security holding the front door, but also by Department of Homeland Security police seen in multiple videos from members of Congress. Lawmakers were told by security guards stationed outside that nobody had accepted a meeting and that they needed an escort in the building in order to enter the building.
The door, he says he's a federal employee. He won't tell us who gave him permission to do this. All he knows is he's going to stand here and tell the members of Congress who are elected, who vote for the funding for all of them in this building, and for the student loans, and for the Title I families. He's going to tell us that we can't come in and talk with anybody. Is that right?
Joining me now is one of the lawmakers who tried to enter the Department of Education today, Congresswoman Jahana Hayes, Democrat of Connecticut, and a 2016 National Teacher of the Year. It's a great pleasure, Congresswoman. And, let's just get right to the bottom. Who tried to stop you, and under what authority were they acting to block members of Congress? That's the part I have to wrap my head around. Who fund the very department that they're standing there blocking members from coming into the building?
Well, thank you, Michael, and it's great to be here. And that's a great question. We did not get an answer to that. The man who came out, he met us at the door. The door was locked, and then he came out and met us and said we were not allowed entry to the building. We had to be on a guest list. And when I said, well, what is your name? What is your title? All he would say is, I work for the Department of Education. Never said who he was, kept pulling out a badge and pulling it back quickly. But we said, we're members of Congress. We can come into the building. We can request a meeting. Would not even let us inside the building.
Amazing. It's just amazing. Well, it also kind of begs the question, what do you do next? I mean, this is the fourth time or so that members of Congress have been denied access to federal property. It's not a question of what the Democrats do, what a Republican, what do members of Congress do when something like this happens? What do you think should happen next?
Well, I think that's really important. I think part of the problem is the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, has ceded all of our Article 1 powers to the president. And in this case, the Speaker of the House should be saying we need to respect the separation of powers. But I know that is not going to happen. So we are bracing for lawsuits. We've sent letters to the department requesting a meeting. 96 members of Congress signed on to this meeting. Outside groups are gearing up to file lawsuits because we read Project 2025. We know what's next. We know what's coming. And Elon Musk and Donald Trump, this whole administration is going play by play in what we saw in this Project 2025. But one thing I don't think people understand. For me, it was important to go to the department because and request this meeting because I'm open to, if you want to audit the department, if you want to make reforms, let's talk about it. Let's work together and see what we need to do. They don't want to do that. They want to tear everything down, just like they talked about in your last segment. And I hope people understand what that means. A lot of the things that Republicans are complaining about that they don't like about the department with curriculum and things that happen in the school, those are local issues, not decided by the Department of Education. What the department does handle is the $1.6 trillion in student loan funds, special education, making sure that students aren't discriminated against, collecting data and statistics from school, preparing educators to teach our students, running Title I programs for our lowest income communities. All of those things will be affected. And people need to understand if those programs are cut, one of two things are going to happen. If the department is cut, one of two things are going to happen. Either those programs are going to go away or their taxes are going to go up to fund their local school systems. Our children deserve better. 49 million children attend public school in this country. And for Elon Musk to come in with no planning, no forethought, and just plow through these agencies with no plan to rebuild them or what's going to happen to the people that are affected is just completely wrong. And the members of Congress are going to stand up to that.
It appears that Elon Musk, Vice President Elon Musk, I guess, I don't know, he's got some role, some official role, thinks that the Department of Education is already dead. In a response to Congressman Maxwell Frost's post about the DOE, he said, quote, "No such department exists in the federal government." You're an educator, a former teacher of the year, someone who knows education better than most. You talked just a moment ago about the programs that are impacted both at the federal and state level. What does this ultimately mean for parents out there and school systems across the country that now will have to scramble, to your point, to figure out where those federal dollars come? Because a block grant is not going to cut it. And we know how block grants ultimately work, right?
Yes. And that's just it. Elon Musk's children don't need public schools. They're not relying on the services that are provided in public school. Donald Trump's children don't need public schools. It's my friends and neighbors. It's the kids that I taught. 7.5 million children receive special education services, wraparound services, accommodations, IEPs, the things that they need in order to learn and meet their educational goals. So many of our rural communities that don't have charter schools, that wouldn't be able to take advantage of some of these voucher programs. People need to think about that. All of those children will be denied a public education. When we had our committee hearing yesterday, the chairman said 1 million students access vouchers for private charter schools. They want to take all this money from the Department of Education and put it into voucher programs. There are not enough spaces for all of the children. What are we going to do with all of these kids? And people really need to think about that. A nation that doesn't invest in their children, that doesn't prepare them to be global citizens, to meet the workforce, we are going to lose a whole generation of kids. And it's not just the Department of Education. They're going after funding for Head Start and HHS. I don't understand this fascination or fixation on pulling money back that we use as resources for our children. And they talk about government efficiency. They talk about the budget. They're not going to the top for all of those big ticket items, like military contractors, like closing some of the tax loopholes that they gave to billionaires. They're taking money from the most vulnerable children, from our global aid programs, a fraction of the budget that really helps invest in the future of this country. And parents need to think about that. Democrat parents, Republican parents, grandparents, everyone needs to understand exactly what this means if the federal government, the Department of Education is stripped and those services are lost. Before and after school programs, lunch programs, services for students with special needs, all of our resources that schools have, our sports programs, our music programs, all of those things gone. Districts are going to have to make tough decisions about what they can keep, and our kids will have the bare minimum in schools, and teachers will not be prepared.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Congresswoman Jahana Hayes. Thank you so much.
So I always say, or as I say, that when you vote for your best interests, things that apply to you. I don't recall when President Trump was running on the idea of shutting down the Department of Education. You all can let me know if you recall or if he mentioned anything about that. I don't recall, that coming up. But now that it's here, when I think about the Department of Education and just the impact that for just my life, my family, there would be an impact simply because of my children still being a part of public schools, as well as, going on to higher education. I still have 2 other children that are still in high school, and then I have the one in college. So this decision would impact me. Would it impact you? So you have to think about that, ask yourself that. I came across this article and I want to share it because it just talks about what the Department of what dissolving of the Department of Education would kind of look like. So let me make sure you can see my monitor or everything's good. Okay, so let's get into this. Hopefully you can see it. What school programs remain even if Department of Education is gutted? So if it's gone away, this is what will be left. And this is according to this is from the website newsnationnow.com. So what will be left without the Department of Education would be the Head Start program, because it's not under the Education Department. The school lunch program will remain the same. So those are the people who are receiving, like the free or reduced lunch. And it's saying Trump is considering cutting the Department of Education. So right now it's saying with getting rid of it, this is at least kind of what will stick around. Now, what happens if the Department of Education is abolished? So let's get into Head Start. Head Start, it's an early education program that serves some of the nation's neediest families and children and is administered by the Department of Health and Food Services. Head Start serves the nation's neediest families, offering preschool for children and support for their parent and caregivers, according to the agency. Many of the people it serves come from low-income households, are in foster care, or are homeless. So anybody who's raised little kids and they were working and somebody had to watch your kids, childcare is expensive. Most of us have utilized childcare at some point if we have children. Childcare is very, very expensive. I haven't used it in several years, but even when I last used it 6-7 years ago, however long it was super expensive. And I'm hearing that it's still expensive. And when I say expensive, just to throw out a number, living in Georgia within like Metro Atlanta, expensive being $275 to $300 a week for a child. What does the Department of Education do? The website went back online for many operators, but a week later, 45 Head Start grants recipients across the country reported problems accessing their funding, said Tommy. So Right now, they're having problems accessing their funding. The school lunch program, the National School Lunch Program, is a federally assisted meal program that is administered by the Department of Agriculture. The program provides nutritionally balanced, low cost or free lunches to children each day, according to the agency. It largely serves districts in high poverty areas, allowing them to distribute meals at no cost to students. The program served 4.7 billion lunches in 2023 and nearly 241 billion lunches in 1969, according to the UDSA. So remember, I talked about the website I used to go to when I would look up the rating for the performance of the different schools, and I took notice that the schools that had more children being participants of that free reduced lunch program, those schools were the lower performing schools in lower ranking, because your ranking is based off of how the school's performance, and what rolls up into the performance is test results. So I've seen the correlations. The higher the number of kids receiving the free reduced lunch, the lower the test scores, which means lower resources, not as many resources coming into the schools. That will impact the quality of the schools all the way around when there is a lack of funding and resources going into the schools. Now, back to the article. What does get cut with the Department of Education? So we learned about what's not going to get impacted. Learn the free reduced lunch, still going to be there. Head Start, still going to be there. So what's not going to be here? The Department of Education administers funding K through 12 schools that is appropriated by Congress, the largest Title I program, which helps educate children from low-income families, and the IDEA program, which helps students with disability. Funding for both of those programs accounts for about $28 billion a year. So removal of the Department of Education already, we're seeing, is going to save just 28 billion alone already. And before we get into some other things, will be saved. So remember, Elon is supposed to be doing his audit, whatever that consists of, trying to see where costs can be cut. Now, I do believe there are a lot of areas where there is funding, just misappropriate funds, like going places that it shouldn't be going, largely going to these other countries, funding their condoms, their DEI programs in other countries, all kinds of things I've been hearing about where funding is going when monies are leaving the USA. But as far as funding within the USA, I don't feel like the funding should be cut in the area of the education, because education already ain't the best. So to me, what is given is if we start taking away stuff, it's just going to make it that much worse. While it's a significant dollar amount, it only amounts to roughly 10% of funding. It's not clear how schools would be expected to make up for the loss of funds if those funds were to be eliminated. As I said, I have not heard about, okay, if we eliminate the Department of Education, stop putting funding here and there, what the alternative's going to be. So that's why I'm sitting on the side right now on being against the elimination of the Department of Education. I need more. I need to know, okay, what's the plan? What's going to be implemented in place of it, other than you saying, hey, we're just going to kick it down to the state level? Is there funding, adequate funding on the state level to suddenly now absorb these costs that were once coming from the federal level? How would that impact those living in these states? Will there be an increase in taxes to make up for the monies that rolls up into that $28 billion? The Education Department also provides oversight for schools, notably through the Office of Civil Rights, which investigates discrimination complaints filed against colleges and K-12 schools. It can also create federal rules which have been used to protect minority populations. So they're saying, okay, this department, the Department of Education, overseeing, like, so when some of you may or may have not experienced discrimination at some point while in school, K through 12. The Department of Education, that's basically who handles that. If you got an issue, it's handled through them. So not your local, I guess, public school district, whatever. It's handled from the federal level. So the lack of funds would be, I guess, you on your own. You just got to fight the fight with your local administrators and just hope for the best. If the department is dismantled, it's unclear how anti-discrimination policies would be made or such enforced if such policies would continue to exist. So discrimination is real. I feel like it's always going to be a thing. So what we don't want to remove is processes around that. So when it becomes a thing, we don't have anyone to roll that matter up to. Like that, remember, checks and balance, law and order. I talked about that on previous lives this week. If you didn't catch any of my car chronicle lives in that series I had going this week, check it out. Checks and balances, and law and order. And I feel like with the Department of Education and what I'm reading, this was a part of the whole law and order. So when stuff ain't going right over here, all right, we got this group over here that can kind of step in and do a proper investigation for just that. So without the Department of Education, which were the ones historically to be the group to do all of that, who do we have? Who do we turn to investigate and explore such matters? Student loans and grants for higher education are a big part of the department's work, and several aid programs could be eliminated. Currently, federal student loans are provided and serviced by the department. So this is where there's also, where an impact for me and my family. I have a son who's currently a second-year college student, and he does receive federal student loans, like many other Americans like myself. So without that resource, that program in place, it would impact me and my family, my household. It would have a great impact because now, okay, without those funds, we as people, American people, we would be expected to come up with those funds ourselves. Again, that's using just basic common sense, because right now it hasn't been anything rolled out that's saying, okay, in place of the federal government providing these monies, it would come from here. Right now, it's just talks of just getting rid of the Department of Education, which means it would impact the student loans. So there's no alternative that's been presented. Not that I've been made aware of. Definitely let me know in the comments, in this chat later on this video. Any of you who happen to be a part of replay gang, let me know what the alternatives are that the government, the president, has suggested when the Department of Education is no longer a thing. Where are these funds coming from? Where are these resources coming from? Next on the list, if the government decides to reduce or eliminate its role in lending for education, students who need help to afford college will have to rely on private loans. So private loans, it's a different process, when you're getting private loans. When you are applying for college and going through the whole process with the whole financial aids, you're presented multiple options. Private loans, it's going to be kind of more that's going into that. And it's probably likely going to be based centered around, like, if you're able to qualify for such private loans. The private loans, how, are they smaller amounts that are approved through private loans versus the federal loans? Is there a different type of interest, a higher interest on the private loans versus, those federal loans? I think that's where the term subsidized versus unsubsidized loans and things where that come into play. A lot of times when we're filling out the paperwork, you see that term subsidized versus unsubsidized. And I think that's speaking to, the federal loans versus the private loans. And oftentimes when you don't qualify or you're unable to get the federal funds, you're directed to private, going a route of, applying for private funds. So it's going to be a different process with, a different approval process if you do have to explore private funds. It's just like, if you're trying to go out and get a private loan, like everybody's not given the green light on a private loan. I would probably think most people probably get rejected in the beginning on private loans. So it's not that simple. Definitely has been easier with getting the federal funds versus trying to go the route of getting something private. Also, this article says those who already have student loans would likely see a disruption in servicing, as the loans would have to be transferred elsewhere, potentially to the Treasury Department. That would include payments for students who are currently enrolled. So that's also another thing when you have private loans versus the federal loans with the payment terms. A lot of times, or what I've seen, with the federal loans, you're not expected to begin, you're like paying those funds back until like a certain length of time, like post completion, or say if you didn't complete it, but you just stopped going, whether you graduate or not, when you stop taking those classes, there's like a certain period of time, a certain window that you have before you're expected to begin making payment on those loans. Now, when it comes to the private loans, that they're going to have a whole different process. They may have something in place to where it may not be centered around, okay, we'll wait until you finish. They may want after just a certain length of time for you to start making payments on it. Or let's just say after you complete college, they may want you to start making payments sooner than, say, the federal government when it comes to the repayment of the federal loans. You see what I'm saying? So it's different rules. And what this is saying is that for those of the students who are currently receiving, with the federal funds and those loans, they'll have to be transferred elsewhere. So that's something that I gotta look out for to see, okay, with my son being in college here at a state school, him having student loans, he's now wrapping up, the second semester, going into his third year. I have to look at that and see, okay, well, what's the situation with these loans? Because as parents, you're tied to the loans as well as your child, the student, because in the beginning, they don't have the credit history and things like that. So they attach it to the parent, the guardian, up into like a certain age point. And I think the only way around that, if you are maybe under 23 or 24, is if you're in the military. But otherwise, up until like around like 23, something around that. Don't quote me on that. When you're completing the applications and things like that for the student loans, it's going to ask for you to provide information for like a guardian. So in my son's case, like I had to provide mine and my husband's, tax information. So when they determined what he qualified for as far as, with student loans and things like that, they were factoring in the financial situation, mine's and my husband's financials versus my son. He didn't have any income. So these student loans, where my husband and I, I think, I put my social on there. It's attached to me. So I have to stay on top of this to see, okay, how am I going to be impacted through the change of these loans? How is it going to impact the situation when it's time for him to start the fall semester? Because the monies for this semester, all before this whole conversation of disbanding the Department of Education, financial aid, all that stuff has been paid out. But going forward, what will it look like? What will it look like? Will I have to try to apply for private loans for my son? Will they approve me? Because mind you, I still have student loans myself from my education. So with going down the process of getting approved for private loans, what are they going to look at? Because I would imagine they're going to factor in, okay, what type of loans, you have out there already. How much do you have out there? The likelihood of you'll be able to pay it back. They're running credit, see what your payment, all these things that you don't necessarily have to go through on that type of level when you are getting the federal funds through the Department of Education. So when I say it's a domino effect, it's a domino effect. Let's see what else this article is saying. Let me see. The Department of Education also provides oversight when it comes to for-profit colleges that could enable for-profit schools to operate with less stringent standards, which could leave students with amounts of loan debts despite receiving an inadequate education. So let me read that again. The Department of Education also provides oversight when it comes to for-profit colleges, okay, that can enable for-profit colleges to operate with less stringent standards, which could leave students with amounts of loans debt despite receiving an inadequate education. Okay, so what this is saying is that the Department of Education also they are normally in normal times, you know, with it doing business as usual, they oversee the for-profit colleges to make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to do. So you have these college students going to these schools that are for profit, and okay, the Department of Education is like, okay, well, we're going to be watching to make sure that you are doing your part in providing adequate education, you know, a quality education for these students. So therefore, it makes sense. They're paying you to go to the school, so the expectation is for you to be providing quality education. So without the Department of Education, there is no program or no one to oversee that. So if someone is going to a for-profit college and the quality of the education is subpar, there's nobody there to say, hey, you need to do better, to regulate that. You're on your own. And that's, to me, it makes me think about when there's discussions come up about accreditation. Because if a school is deemed to be, you know, subpar or given inadequate education, to me, that has there's an increased chance for that school to become unaccredited. And when you lose your when a school loses their accreditation, that means that those now adults who went to that college, as they're navigating through their lives, you know, you go on these jobs, they say, okay, what college did you go to? And then they do a verification for that. They're going to come back and be like, oh, your school is no longer accredited. So we really don't consider that. It's almost like you didn't go to college, like it don't count. That happened to one of the colleges here in Georgia some years back, 15, 20 years ago, maybe longer. I think it was Morris Brown. I think it was that college. It was at HBCU, and they had lost their accreditation. And not sure if they ever got it back. I think they got it back, but during that period, it was almost like it was the degrees were like a paperweight, because it had no weight when they were going, you know, these people were going to companies and saying, hey, I went to this school, or say if they wanted to get an advanced degree and go to another school, and you know how they have to send for your transcripts, things like that. If Morris Brown came up, it was like, no, ma'am, no, sir, you can't pass go, because the school was not accredited. And it happened actually to one of our county schools, Clayton County schools here in Georgia some years back, had also lost like an accreditation for a period of time, and they had to kind of put the work in to get it back. So I've seen it happen, you know, through the K through 12 level, as far as the collegiate level, where the accreditation is removed. So what I'm learning is that the Department of Education, that's that higher up group that kind of oversees and watches things like that, to make sure that things are taking place in a manner in which they should, to prevent the doors from being closed at these institutions, at these schools, all of that. So what do we have without that? That's the question I have. Like, what do we have without that? Because right now, I feel like there is a need for the Department of Education based off of the resources it just said that it currently, or what it has been providing to date. I believe that is a cost that we shouldn't cut. That's not one that we shouldn't cut. Now, what the government may want to do is maybe go in and do some changes, maybe, make some administrative changes if you want to shift things around, put different people in place. Maybe some people not doing their job on a high enough level, get rid of them, bring somebody else in. But the idea of removing it completely, it's a scary idea when I look at what the Department of Education kind of historically has done for the American people. I'm waiting to hear what the alternative suggestion is. Definitely let me know, in the comments. What are your thoughts? Are you here for the removal of the Department of Education? I did, put a poll out there. Let me see if what the poll results are showing, because I'm curious to know, how do people feel about this? So right now, 47% saying yes, shut it down. 41% is saying yes, shut it down. 47% is saying no. 12% is saying, hey, I'm on the fence. So I get it. Again, you have to think about, how does it impact you and yours? Does it impact? Because it doesn't impact everyone. If you're an empty nester, like your children are grown, living up like a senior, it may not impact them, if they're not exploring higher education. So there's a good number of people to where this does not have a direct impact on them. But I really feel like the vast majority, some type of way, there is an impact, because they have children who are still in grade school, K through 12, college, or they themselves are currently in college or interested in furthering their education. These are things to think about, food for thought. And even for those who haven't started, having children yet, building families. If I did not have children, like, these are things that I would be thinking about. If I knew that, okay, if I have kids, they're going to be going into the public school system. So I have to factor in, like, wow, this is what the public school system is going to be giving within our nation. Am I cool with that? Can me and my partner, my husband, whatever, can we afford to have our children just, have alternative education through private school? Can they be homeschooled? Maybe that's going to be a thing. Maybe we're going to see an influx of students who are now going to be homeschooled due to these types of changes, because I would imagine we would see an impact with the quality of how the school systems through the K through 12 level are run. I don't see how we wouldn't see that, or why that wouldn't be felt within the community. Like, after what we just read through this article, I don't see how we would not feel that. We're going to feel that. We're going to feel that. College students right now will definitely feel this impact, as well as parents who are support to their college students with helping them further their education. So right now, for me, it's a no on the dismantle of the Department of Education, and a yes on regulating the immigration policies, because we need some structure, definitely, when it comes to the immigration. I've talked my talk on a couple of videos this weekend about all the whys on that. So if you're interested in my thoughts on that, definitely you want to check that. But again, the people in the Hispanic community know Trump is standing on business. He's not playing no games, because I took notice of the the change just at my local DMV office. So also, just for an update with the whole federal job situation, I saw that there was an extension on the date that the federal workers had to make their decision on if they're going to give their resignations from their federal jobs. And they have until Monday, because before it was like the 6th. So now it's moved till Monday. They have till Monday. But from what I've gathered, like what President Trump is doing, as far as him making these offers, saying, hey, if you accept this offer, you can get paid your salary through September. I think that was given us like 8 months. If you resign, you don't have the job, but you're going to still collect your salary. And I believe probably your medical benefits and things through September. So from listening to his press secretary, I think she said of all federal workers currently, only 6% are working in the office and the rest had been home. The rest has been home. Hold on, let me check something. I'm getting an update on something. Okay, so on another live this week, I talked about having a good friend who worked for the federal government, and she talked about them receiving an email requesting for her resignation and offering. She at the time had mentioned something about 8 weeks of pay. She mentioned that it was 8 weeks of pay if she were to give her resignation by the 6th, February 6th. So I just caught up with her. She just texted me because I wanted to see, like, okay, what are you going to do? Because a lot of people were saying they were not going to resign. And I think the reasons why they were saying they weren't going to resign is because they felt like, or what was being said is that President Trump didn't have the authority to make such a call to call for people to resign from their jobs. So they were like, the message was hold the line, don't resign, because if you do, really what he's promising you that he's going to do with still paying you, he can't do that. So don't do that. So followed up with my friend. I want to know, hey, what's the deal? Are you resigning? What's what? Her response is, no, I'm not going to resign. And I guess if she were to resign, she would get 7 months of her full pay. She's not resigning. So the part that I'm confused on is that the secretary, hey, welcome, Dr. J. Thank you for joining. You all, thank you for joining. Please like the video for those of you who are joining. So let me talk about before I get out of here, my confusion when it comes to this federal government situation. So with my friend that I just spoke on, she told me, hey, I'm not going to resign. But the reason why she said she was asked to resign was because when she got her job offer last September to, work for the federal government, she worked specifically for the IRS. She was hired to work at home. And because she was hired to work at home, it was a hybrid situation, 4 days at home, 1 day office. So Monday through Thursday, she's home working, Friday in the office. So she said the dilemma was, well, the government hired like 50,000+ people, whatever. And it was the intent with a hybrid type situation or these people working at home. So when Trump took over and said everybody needs to come in the office, she's like, well, there's no space for everyone to come into the office. So that's why we're being asked to resign, because there's no space. She says, my job, there's 2 shifts. Either, you come into the office either Monday or you come into the office on Friday. You're sharing space because it's not enough space for everybody to be in the office together Monday through Friday. So her desk that she shares is with the person who's in the office on Fridays. In the office on Mondays. She's office Friday, her desk partner office Monday. So they share the same desk and they rotate. You see what I'm saying? They rotate. So I'm like, okay, wow, I get it. I can see how this is a problem since you all have to go back in the office. It's not enough desks. Got it. But I heard a couple of days ago, the press secretary, the new young lady, I forget her name, she made a comment of saying that people aren't wanting to come back in the office, and that being the root of why the severance, these options, this resignation opportunity or option to resign kind of came about because people don't want to come in the office. So I'm like, okay, well, which is it? Do they not want to come in the office, or is there nowhere for them to sit when they come into the office? Which one is it? Because the close contact I have, she said the situation is there's nowhere for them to go in the office because the office space wasn't designed for X amount of employees. So let's just say it was 300 employees. The office space can only account for 150. What we doing with the other 150? The other 150, you were like, oh, they're at home. No big deal. We Gucci. But now they're like, no, you need to bring all 300 in the office, but I only got space for 150. Okay, well, hell, some people going to have to raise up out of here then. That's the way she kicked it to me. But according to how the press secretary, what she's saying is that people don't want to come to work. What doesn't make sense to me is why somebody will opt to resign from their government job. Everybody know a government job is one of them good jobs, good benefits, good pay, all of that. What doesn't make sense to me is that someone would choose to resign from a situation like that in order to sit at home and collect a paycheck for 7-8 months and then still eventually have to go back to work because that money is not going to last forever. It's not going to last forever. So, and if you're not good with your time management, like you might go through that money faster than you were, you would if you were actually working. I don't know if it's every, however you normally get paid on schedule, you still making that money. If they doing a lump sum, hey, I'm about to write you a check and it's going to be, because I've dealt with situations where being laid off, where one situation they wrote me a check for a severance. And then another situation, they just paid me out bi-weekly, however my pay was. So which way, how are these people getting paid? How are these people getting paid? Do these people trust that they will get paid? So some people are not taking the opportunity, accepting the offer to resign from their jobs. And my friend says she's not. So what happens? Let's see. What happens if one does not choose to resign? Let me see. Let's see what the internet is saying. Let's see. Okay. All right. So let's get into this because that's my question. Because listen, my friends like, listen, sis, I'm not resigning. Okay. So I want to know what happens for those who choose to not resign. So this is what I found. I'm sure y'all can see my screen. Okay. So let's get into this article because I'm curious, because Monday is the deadline. So I want to know, like, what's on the table? Like, what we doing? What's our options? So this article reads, so this is from Forbes.com, Trump's buyout deadline. What happens to federal workers who reject the offer? So this article is dated February 6, 2025. Millions of federal workers must decide whether to accept or reject Trump's buyout offer. What will happen to those who reject the offer? Would you voluntarily walk away from a career that you have intentionally built and cultivated over decades? That was my question, y'all. This is a dilemma facing many federal career employees. Just 9 days ago, the Office of Personnel Management, OPM, presented a guidance memo informing federal workers that they need to make a decision whether to voluntarily resign and walk away from their government careers. Since President Trump and Elon Musk first publicly announced their intention to offer the buyout, employees have been reeling with anxiety, frustration, anger, and confusion. I can't imagine even being in the situation that these people are in with having to make a decision. So I really have been heavily invested because, like I said, I know someone personally who this is impacting. During his campaign, Trump vowed to dismantle federal bureaucracy, restructure vast swaths of agencies and programs, and reduce the size of the federal workforce. A necessary component of achieving his goal is a significant reduction in the number of federal employees. Hence, the buyout offer that the administration wants up to 10% of federal workers to accept. So I think I had learned that 10% was like in the six figures that they wanted, or maybe even the millions. I don't know. But from what I heard, it's far from the number that he was wanting. So they want up to 10%. But from what I heard, it was not nowhere near 10% of the people who were going to accept this offer as of like a day ago. Trump brought on Elon Musk to lead and advise on these efforts via the new advisory office known as the Department of Government Efficiency, or the DOGE. What happens to federal workers who reject Trump's buyout offer? That's the $1 million question. I want to know. Y'all want to know? So let's see what they're saying. The OPM informs that federal workers are under no obligation to accept the buyout offer that Trump has made. This is a personal and voluntary decision that all employees should make, considering what's in their best interest. It's important to note the glaring contradiction and gap between what the OPM guidance memo says and what's being reported and discussed in real time on the ground. The public messaging from President Trump and Elon Musk speaks volumes and indicates that federal workers who reject the buyout offer and refuse to voluntarily resign risk being laid off, furloughed, or fired in the near future as a result of ongoing downsizing and restructuring decisions. What happens to federal workers who fail to respond or who reject the buyout offer? There is no obligation for federal employees to submit any response at all about the buyout offer. Employees are free to ignore the email about the offer and go about their business as usual. Here's specific language from the OPM guidelines. So, question: what happens if employees do not respond to the email or accept the deferred resignation? OPM answer: nothing. Employees have no obligation to respond to the email. Accepting deferred resignation is in employees' sole discretion and is completely voluntarily. Can employees change their minds after accepting Trump's buyout offer? No, not without an exception waiver. For most federal workers, it's now or never on the Trump buyout offer. Federal workers who reject the buyout offer or who fail to resign before the deadline won't be able to change their minds at a later date. Certainly, federal employees can resign at any point after the buyout deadline, but they won't have the option to do so under the terms of the buyout. Here's specific language from OPM, the guidance menu. Question: if an employee decides after February 6th, so now I guess the new date is going to be 8, 9, 10th, after February 10th, because remember, they gave them another, till Monday, the 10th, to make a decision. So if employees decide after February 6th or the 10th that they would like to resign under the terms offered in the January 28th, 2025 deferred resignation letter, will they still be allowed to? The OPM's answer: deferred resignation will generally not be available to those who resign after February 6th or the 10th. Certain exceptions might be made for employees who were on approved absence for some or all of the period from January 28, 2025 through February 6, 2025. Exceptions for federal workers who don't accept the buyout offer because they were on approved leave or otherwise unable to respond. The OPM mentions a few exceptions where federal workers can request more time to make a decision on the buyout offer. In instances where employees were out on approved leave between the date employees were first officially notified about the deferred resignation program, January 28th, and the February 6th deadline, which is now February 10th, an extension may be granted. Here's the specific language from the OPM guidelines. How do we handle employees who were on approved leave during or all of the period during January 28th, 2025 through February 6th, 2025, who as a result did not get a sufficient opportunity to evaluate and or accept the deferred resignation letter? OPM answer: employees who missed the February 6, 2025 deadline due to the approved absence for some or all of the period of January 27, 2025 through February 6, 2025 are entitled to request an extension, and employing agencies may grant reasonable extensions. So right now, like I said, a lot of people aren't accepting it. From what I hear, he's nowhere near the number that they wanted as far as with people accepting. Let me see if we can see what percentage of people have accepted. Let's see. So let's see. What is this? New York Times, they always want you to pay to check out their stuff. Let's see. Tens of thousands of federal workers accept Trump's resignation offer. So tens of thousands of U.S. government workers have reportedly accepted an offer from the Trump administration to resign as the clock counts down ahead of Thursday night deadline, which is now Monday. Federal employees have until midnight on Thursday to decide to step down in exchange for continued pay until the 30th of September. Some 2 million federal employees were advised that they could opt in to the deferred resignation program, an offer akin to a gradual buyout last week. So far, more than 1% of that workforce has chosen to take part, making up between 20,000 and 40,000 federal workers, according to the U.S. media. The White House, so they said 1%. What they said, they wanted what, 10%? And they at 1%. Y'all think they gonna hit that number, the 10%? The White House, which previously said it expected as many as 200,000 people to accept, told U.S. media they expect a spike in participation in the next 24 hours. The resignation scheme announcement, delivered in the form of a late night email, is part of an ongoing effort by the Trump administration to slash the size of the federal bureaucracy and cut spending. Unions who represent U.S. government workers have sued to block the plan for mass resignation. Quote, "We won't stand by and let our members become the victim of this con," said American Federation of Government Employees, AFGE, and President Everett Kelly in a statement on Tuesday afternoon. "We were blindsided," federal workers react to the buyout offer. Reddit community banned as users spat with Musk intensifies. On Tuesday, the Central Intelligence Agency, CIA, became the first national security arm to extend the offer to its staff, telling its entire workforce they could quit and receive about 8 months of pay and benefits. So the CIA went in there and said, "Listen up, y'all. We got a meeting time. Meet up at the water cooler. We giving you the opportunity to quit. And if you choose to quit, we will pay you 8 months of pay and benefits." But it was not immediately clear who could accept the offer. Some areas of expertise may be restricted, CNN reported, citing a source familiar. Newly appointed CIA Director John Ratcliffe personally decided he wanted the spy agency to be involved in the resignation program, the source told CNN. The CIA is also freezing the hire of those already given a conditional offer, the Wall Street Journal reported, citing an aide to Ratcliffe. Some of the offers are likely to be rescinded if the applicants do not suit the administration's new priorities. The aide reportedly said, including President Donald Trump's tariffs and working to undermine China. An analysis of the federal workers by the Nonprofit Partnership for Public Services found that the annual attrition rate among federal employees is about 6%, meaning some of those who accept a buyout offer may have been planning to leave government anyway. Those who oppose the resignation scheme include AFGE, the largest federal employee union. In a complaint, it wrote that the proposed buyouts were arbitrary and capricious and violates federal law. And the AFG claims employees can't rely on the government to deliver on their promise of pay until September. To take part in the buyout, employees must waive their right to legally challenge their employer in court, according to a Tuesday statement from the government's Human Resources Agency, meaning they must trust that the deal will be honored. Lord Jesus. So they saying, listen here. Listen, you just trust that I got you. Will you be willing to walk away from your job listen, I got you, sis. I got you, bro. Don't listen. I told you I got you. I told you I got you. Don't worry about it. I know it seemed a little, but listen, I got you. And in the event that they don't have them, then it's like you don't have grounds legally to sue. That's what it's saying. Now, those who are choosing to not resign, they can, they can, I guess, continue to work and say they do lose their jobs. They'll have right to try to file a suit because they didn't accept anything. So, it's kind of different terms. But y'all, this is crazy. Like, it's insane. Y'all let me know in the comments what you think. It's crazy. Let's see what this is saying. Fair use.
And with regard to the USAID stuff, I went over it with him in detail, and he agreed with that we should shut it down.
I'm the acting director of USAID. There are a lot of functions of USAID that are going to continue, that are going to be part of American foreign policy, but it has to be aligned with American foreign policy. They're supposed to take direction from the State Department, policy direction. They do not.
This is a case of the very worst among us attacking the very best of us. The work USAID does is vital to all Americans.
Elon Musk, you didn't create USAID. The United States Congress did for the American people. And just like Elon Musk did not create USAID, he doesn't have the power to destroy it. And who's going to stop him? We are. We're going to stop him.
Elon, stop this coup. Nobody elected you.
Musk was not elected, and he's taking over powers that really belong to Congress.
Elon can't do and won't do anything without our approval. And we'll give him the approval where appropriate. Where not appropriate, we won't. But he does have a good natural instinct. He's got a team of very talented people. We're trying to shrink government.
So listen, Trump saying, listen, he has approval to review things, to make suggestions to me, but at the end of the day, I am the final person to sign off. So it looks like with the dismantle of the Department of Education, it looks like it's coming from the recommendation of Elon Musk. And it's giving from, that Trump is in support of it. And just as, as far as with the, shrinking the federal government, Elon, agrees that it's going to cut costs. Trump agrees with it. So Trump is like, listen, I sign off on whatever I agree with. And so far, these things that have made the media, these are things that President Trump agrees with. He agrees with all of these things. So, we're in a tough spot. Like I said, I don't agree with everything that President Trump is doing. There's some things I've agreed with, like immigration, but with the Department of Education, I don't agree with that. With as far as with the federal government, I don't like that these people who are being extended the offer for the monies, I guess, to resign for their job and get paid through X amount of time. I don't know. It's just something there to me that it's kind of shaky. It's not solid enough for me to feel like, okay, this is going to be something that's going to be able to be held up. I haven't seen the email or anything like that people have received. I don't know. My question I had with people who are receiving these types of offers is like, what type, is there like a legal document in place where it's a promise of saying, hey, if you resign, I'll pay you until September. Like, are these people going on a wing and a prayer? Like, you just hoping for the best? And it seems like a lot of people, as they're doing their research, it has them to say, nah, I think I'm going to take my chances and not accept. Because at least if you take your chances and not accept, you're not blocked from taking the government to court, lawsuits and things like that. From the article we just went over, it seems like if you put in your resignation, you're forfeiting your right to later go back and sue, even if you're not paid out and the things that were promised to you does not pan out. Like, so it seems like you got more rights, legal rights, if you just don't resign and let's just say you let them fire you. Because think about it, like, what kind of legal stance do you have against your employer and you quit versus they fired you? To me, from a legal standpoint, it sounds like you have more of a leg to stand on when someone fires you and then now you're going after them for wrongful termination, discrimination, all of that. But when you quit, it kind of makes the argument kind of more difficult, because it's like, well, you quit. You can kind of say, well, I quit because they made it difficult because of this reason, that reason. But to me, it just seems like an easier fight if you allow them to kind of force you out and put you out, and then you have your argument of like wrongful termination. So as I'm thinking about everything, that's what's coming to mind to me that make me kind of lean on the side of these people should probably continue to work. Let them come to them and say, hey, you're fired, or however he's going to do it, and then go the legal route with trying to see how you can, if there's any way that you can get some type of compensation for a wrongful termination, because they're going to have to come at you with a reason for the termination, right? So based off of the reasoning that they give you, you get lawyered up, probably turn into like something class action, and you might get you a little check. And I think those people who did accept the resignation, listen, that little 8 months only going to go for so long to where that money going to be gone. But those people who willing to kind of ride it out, probably in the end, I'm thinking is financially is going to probably benefit the most. Also, these people say if they do get fired or whatever, they'll be eligible for unemployment because they didn't quit, right? You typically, it's hard to get unemployment approved when you quit. But if you're terminated, then most of the time you can get unemployment. Sometimes you'll have some petty employers that might fight it, but 9 times out of 10, you'll be able to, most of the time people are able to get unemployment. So you'll still be able to kind of collect you a little check, try to find you a little job or hustle to tide you over while you go through the litigation process. But it sounds like it would be one worth the fight because of the payout. But keep in mind, the more people that's a part of the suit, if it is a class action, of course, you got to divvy that money up between everybody who's on the suit plus the attorneys. So, but I think that it still would pan out to be more money that you'll walk away with than the amount of money that you would have received, I guess, for 8 months of salary. Because, yeah, I just think that you got to be strategic about it. So from a strategy perspective or standpoint, I think it would be best. I would probably just sit it out and just hope for the best, child. Hope for the best. Hope for the best. Dr. J says, right, they should be eligible for unemployment, right? But if you walk away from your job, you're not eligible for unemployment. So those people, once their little 8 months gone, they're not going to be eligible for 8 months for unemployment because they resigned, they quit. So that money's gone. That money is gone. So, they're taking a chance on walking away. So like I said, my friend gave me the update on her situation. She was like, I'm not, and over the last week, when she told me about it, this week makes week 2. So what was it? The 26th, the 28th when he put all this out there. So she told me about it, I think the day of. And since then, I had been sending her just things that I've been coming across centered around the situation, centered around people questioning whether or not he had that right from a legal standpoint to make such a promise. So I kind of sent it to her so she can kind of do her research, ask questions. I'm like, hey, this is what I found. Raise these questions to whoever you feel like can give you some answers. But just make sure you understand what they're asking of you. And so therefore, you know, you're making the best decision for you and yours. You know, she's a mother. She has a child, single mom. Like, listen, she need her money. She need her money. Full-time student, was working full-time job, a mom. She's handling her business just like what you do as an adult. She's doing her part. She's doing her part. So what I did not want to see is for her to be taken advantage of and somebody pulling a fast one over her because they're telling her, hey, for 8 months, you really don't maybe even have to work because we still finna pay you out for 8 months. Because to me, that's how it's being kicked, because they don't know if you're working another job in these 8 months or not. So really, you can go quickly and get you another job, be bringing that check in and still bringing in your money from this little situation. Because how do they know you got another job? Like, you ain't going around reporting that. So you really making 2 salaries for 8 months if you're able to quickly get back on the clock someplace else. Or if you like, listen, I'm gonna have me a little break, take me a little vacation, get my mind right. You got 8 months. But remember, 8 months is gonna be here before you know it. Y'all know how as we get older, we notice time just seems to go by faster and faster. Remember when we were kids, it seemed like it drug on and on. It seemed like it took forever for Christmas to come or for our birthday to come. Now you're like, damn, it's my birthday again. You say I'm how old? Christmas when? You know, so time comes up. And when you have responsibilities and there's dates and deadlines, that it makes time go by fast because you got responsibilities. When you're a child, you don't really have responsibilities, so time just seems like it's dragging. But when you got responsibilities, it just seems like these dates, these timelines, like we're going through them quickly. They're quickly. I'm sure these people who got this offer to resign, they're like, wow, that time is here where I got to give my answer. It just seemed like yesterday where it was just presented to me. So this is all very fast that these people have to just make a quick, decision that can impact them and have a impact their life, because think about the people who are close to retirement. Like think about the, people who got children like me who are in college, higher education. Like with me, I take care of 2 households, my household plus, my son. It's responsibilities. People have responsibilities, which is rooted in why they work. Most people ain't out here working because they love working. You got some that do, but it's rooted in responsibilities. In order to get this, you got to do that, so you're doing what you have to do. And now, these people are about to have their livelihood impacted, and it's going to have an impact on their overall quality of their life. It is what it is. Dr. J says, Sheik, in my opinion, these decisions are not being thought through logically. The president is moving too quickly. I think that I personally think that from the president or from a political standpoint, I think that they have been thinking about this longer than what we think. And I've been hearing people talk about an agenda 2025, and I pulled it and I have it saved on my laptop, and it's 900 some pages. I don't even know where to start with it, because when it first came out with it was a lady on YouTube. She's a HR specialist, so she has a channel and her background is HR. So she was the first person that I heard talk about how it wasn't a good idea for these federal workers to accept this resignation. And she talked about it being in the Agenda 2025. I think that's what it's called, where she just urged people to go out there and read it. She said she'd read it, but it's super long because she had dropped the link for it. And so y'all Google Project 2025. That's just what, I did. I think I just in Project 2025. She said in Project 2025, he talked about or it's talked about. I don't know if Project 2025 was something that was created by him or his camp administration. I don't know. I would just hear about it last year, this whole Project 2025, when election time was here, but I didn't really know really fully what that meant like that. I didn't get into it. But she's saying it's in Project 2025. He talked about wanting to change how our government looked, meaning that he wanted to just do away with the government that we have today and implement like something else. So she said, basically, that is what's happening. This is what's playing out. He's doing away with the old, and then I guess coming in, we're going to have the new come in. But that's what I'm saying, where I don't know what that new is. Because I do feel like, and most of us agree, we got issues with our government, with our school system, things like that. But I'm the type of person, before going to getting rid of something, I need to know, what do we already have ready in place to switch over to? That's just how I am. You got some people who will get rid of something and worry about the new later. The way my brain works, in order for me to wrap around throwing out the old, I need to already be aware of what the new is, what it looks like, because I may not feel like it's worth throwing out the old. That's how my brain works, but everybody isn't like that. So I feel like the government, Trump, whoever, they have thought about it in logic and all of that. Their mind, they're thinking about something in a way that we're not thinking about, because they're factoring in things that have not been presented to us. Like, we're not aware of everything. We don't have all the pieces to the puzzle. We just got these little pieces. We got a corner piece here. We got a middle center piece here. We got a top left piece here, one bottom right piece here. And we trying to, figure out what the picture is about to look like. Meanwhile, he already know what the whole picture look like, because he got all the pieces. We don't. So we're here talking about the little pieces we got and still trying to figure out what the hell this image is. Is it a tree? Is it a car? Is it a dog? Because we can't tell. We can't tell with the little 5 pieces we got, and it's a 500 piece or 1,000 piece puzzle. We got 5 pieces. What are you doing with 5 pieces? That's how to me, that's how I'm rationalizing what's being done. I don't have all the information to really say, hey, we're moving in the right direction when it comes to this. So Dr. J says, you could have a point. I have a copy of the Project 2025. Again, it is not best for the people. Yes. So I got it. Like I said, it's really long. I haven't had time to sit and try to go through it. And based off of how it looks, I couldn't figure out, like, say, I was particularly interested in, like, with the whole government, IRS, there wasn't an index that I took notice of where I can say, oh, on page 507, it talks about this. I didn't see that. So I didn't sit and try to go through the almost 1,000, because it's almost 1,000 pages. I didn't try to go through it to try to figure out where things were. But the woman says she read it, and it is outlined in the Project 2025. It's there. So I recommend you all Google Project 2025, and maybe try to find time to kind of get into it, see what you take away from it. Get into the comments. Let me know your thoughts. Dr. J said, Trump and administration got to realize that America is not made up of millionaires. Millionaires are a small percentage, a very, very small percentage. Hell, it's a small percentage of people who just make 6 figures. Really, when you think about, like, it's small. In the average household, especially within the Black community, the income is about 40,000. So if you in a I'm married, so 2 income household, me and my husband, that automatically puts us in like the top, 1%. Like, we're in the top just because of that. Even though he and I both would say that even with our 2 incomes and having 3 children, 1 in college, 2 in high school, a house, mortgage, everything, we still feel like, I still feel like working poor. You all familiar with the term working poor, the working poor? I've heard a long time ago, there's no longer going to be middle class. It's either going to be rich or poor. And I feel like that's where we are. I feel like someone like me who would, on paper, I guess, be looked at as middle class, to me, feel like I'm more aligned with more of the poor, because I'm leaps, I'm so far away from being in the tax brackets of the millionaires who are just making all these moves, the money moves, like Cardi B say, money move, they're making the money move. So I can't relate to that because my struggles more so align with the struggles of someone who has a household where there's only one income, and my household is 2 incomes. It more so aligns with them versus the rich. That's where I'm at. I understand Dr. J made some great points. Dr. J said his cabinet is made up of billionaires. Yes. So they're going to think kind of differently than the regular people down, with us as far as when it comes to the money and the resources and how things should be spent, is because many of the Americans, we're living paycheck to paycheck, we're robbing from Peter to pay Paul, it's like, okay, well, I can't pay this bill right now. I got to pay this one. I'm going to circle back to you on this one. Okay, well, you said this due on this date. Okay, well, I'm going to try to do it right here on this day before, like, we're doing all this. I mean, how many of you do all this strategizing to try to pay a bill, and you're doing this every month? And some people are doing this even when they don't have children still at home, whether they don't have children at all or they're empty nesters. They're still trying to figure out how to make it do what it do. And it is so hard. People are getting laid off from jobs. That's why, to me, it sounded crazy when I heard, his administration say that people were choosing to people would rather put in a resignation than to return to the office. That sounds crazy to me. I don't know if I believe that is the reason why this is even a conversation. To me, it makes more sense that people aren't going into the office because the space, there's like with my friend's situation, that makes sense to me. It doesn't make sense to me that there's an influx of space for people in these offices and they're saying, nope, I done got so comfortable being at home with my heels kicked up to where I'd rather resign than to go into the office. That just makes no sense to me. It just sounds illogical. And I know sometimes people make illogical decisions, but I feel like mostly this is rooted in the offer being put out there because Trump wants to change the face of the government. So in order to do that, it's like, okay, what they say, out with the old, in with the new. I heard his press secretary talk about that's fine. These people can, put their resignation in, and we're going to bring in better, stronger people, more competent people, whoever these people are supposed to be. She's saying, hey, these people, her words was centered around people who work from at home. They're just being lazy and they not doing anything. I believe in any type of work environment, you're going to have some people who are doing just that, not a damn thing while they're working at home. But you're going to have a lot of people who feel like they're getting more done. I happen to be one of those people who feel like they get more done when working at home because you have less distractions. You're not stressed from the long commute. Hence why I was able to do the series on the Car Chronicles. Checked out those videos I've put out this week. I think I did it on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday because I wasn't at home working. I was driving into the office. So I'm like, okay, well, let's talk on my ride to the office. One way with traffic, in the AM is a 90-minute drive. That's a 90-minute drive. So I went live during that time. But that takes a lot, it's draining, it takes a lot of energy. It's costly. You're on the road. So you're putting the wear and tear on your vehicle, gas. Then when you are in the office, you're dealing with whatever the office politics are. I think that it is nice to have an option to be able to go in the office or even like a hybrid type situation, but to expect for people to just 100% every day, day in, day out, just spend hour and a half to 2 hours plus in traffic one way. Mind you, that's just one way, 90 minutes for me. I still got to get home. So I'm collecting, on average, spending 4.5 hours doing a damn road trip between going to and from work. It can be 4 hours. I live in Atlanta. Anybody who knows anything about Atlanta, Georgia traffic knows it's not even an exaggeration what I'm saying. This is the norm, to spend a lot of time commuting to and from places, especially when you live outside of the city. I don't live in the city. I live in the suburbs. Living in the city, traffic is also still crazy, but of course, it's going to be a shorter commute when you're navigating within the city versus if you live outside of the city and you're driving into the city. So it's better, what do I call it? Work-life balance. It's called work-life balance. It's great work-life balance when you have the ability to do your job from home because you're able to handle your responsibilities with your job plus your household responsibilities. And I think from what I've seen in the past when I've researched work from home opportunities and benefits, people tend to actually work longer hours when they are working at home because they can stay working on a report or working on something and not factor in, oh, I got to get out. I got to get on the road before the traffic gets even worse than what it is. They're already at home, so they're able to kind of do more, because they're not factoring in, okay, it's going to take me an hour and a half to get home. So I got to have a hard stop at 4:00 or 5:00. So guess what? They're going to stop working versus if they were already at home, they're probably going to still continue to work until 6, 7 o'clock. So I just think that it's not isolated to just federal workers to where they're working from home and not doing anything. I think you're going to have some that's the case, but you're going to have a lot, probably more, where that's not the case. That's not the case. So ultimately, I think it's just rooted in Trump wants the government to look a certain way. What that is, apparently, it's been said, is outlined in Project 2025. Homework is everybody look into Project 2025, get into what it says, see if whatever it says, if it's something, if you see things that have a direct impact on you or your families, so you can move accordingly. Because right now there's so much going on, you all. When I do choose to come live, I'm like, okay, let me gather my thoughts around what the hell going on. What are my thoughts around it? Okay, I'm here for this. God damn it, I'm not really here for this, because if you all catch my other content I put out this week, a lot of what I was talking about was centered around Trump and things. I'm like, okay, I'm here for it. But the tone of this video is different. I'm like, okay, this is something I'm not here for. So as I say, you can like somebody or rock with somebody and not be here for everything that they do. And I'm not here for everything that he's doing right now. And I do hope that very, very soon, a clear picture is going to be presented by his administration behind the why of these major changes that he's making as far as when it comes to the government, in particular, the Department of Education. Now, with him trying to remove all them funds for them other countries that we got monies going out for all these crazy things, I'm here for that. We need to keep the money in our country. Now, when it comes to the monies that's being moved around within our country, I think that's when we need to be like, okay, hold up, Elon. Now let's see. You said, $5 billion is going over here. Let's really deep dive and see if it's necessary for the people versus saying, nope, we just having these knee-jerk reactions, or to us what it feels like is knee-jerk. But I truly believe behind the scenes they got a whole plan and agenda that we're just not privy to. Some of us may be privy to some things. I call it underground news, when you hear the information, things that come from like other news outlets that's not mainstream, that you learn about, what's really going on. So I try to be tapped into some of those type of outlets as well. But as far as on the mainstream media, I think it's definitely time for our government to really communicate what the deal really is, because right now our country is so divided. I feel like personally our country today is more divided than when Trump won the election the first time. Because I remember I was all up in my feelings when he won the first time. What? Like, I just was not here for it. I was definitely on that side. Like, I was like, and like, what? Whereas this time around, with coming off of seeing how our government had been running, and me personally not being happy with, our government, the economy, I'm like, okay, I'm open for change and trying something different. What can we do differently? because what we've been experiencing, it ain't been working. People hungry, people ain't got no money. The bank accounts ain't looking like they used to look. So I'm like, okay, Trump, what you got to say now? You know, what plans, what ideas you got? So I was open to, okay, the things that he wanted to present. Now we're here and, you know, he's, you know, putting things in place. And I'm like, okay, I'm here for that, not here for that. We'll see what else happens, you know, in the coming weeks, because child ain't even been 100 days yet. We dealing with weeks. We are dealing with weeks. So we are still kind of like in the first 5 minutes of him being president. And this is what's happening. And I just only hope that it gets better. And instead of us kind of going this way, you know, we're kind of coming in closer to one another, because the division, I don't see how we'll possibly be able to, what they say, make America great again or better or whatever. I don't even see how that can happen with us being as divided as we are. In order for that to happen, people got to come in more. And I really feel like people came in together more over the past like 8 to 12 years than today. I think today, from a mental or a moral compass, I just think that we're at a low, you know, or we're at a low right now. We're at a low, and we have to change it. We got to change it, and we can only do that if we come together. Because the way we going about it right now, Dr. J said, "God bless America." Y'all listen, that's God bless America. God bless America. And so the prayer is that we come together. You know, what they say, it takes teamwork to make the dream work. It takes teamwork to make the dream work. Dr. J, you agree? You say, yes, we are at a low. Yes, you feel it like I feel it like we're at such a low to where I'm literally living by the walk by faith, not by sight, because my sight, I'm not seeing any good. It's bad. It's bad. I can't sit here and just name out good that I'm seeing from sight. It's bad. So I'm sitting in the, you know, since I'm a spiritual person, I'm sitting in that faith of keeping the faith that, you know, that even though I don't see it, I don't see how we're going to come back from this. I have faith that over time, things are going to work out in a way to where people are going to start seeing the light of whatever, and people are going to come in, and people are going to start working together to come up with solutions. Because I think most of us can agree that a lot of what we have been doing haven't been working much, and that there is some type of change that needs to take place. But again, it's how we go about the change. What they say is not what you do, is how you do it. How are we going about this change? And the way that right now, that how we're going about it, it's not, to me, having us get to that better place that, let's just say, President Trump ran on. I don't see us getting there. What they say, one band, one sound, like we're not getting there. And so I'm continuing to listen out, watch the news, and in hopes that there's something that he's going to say or do that the collective is going to be like, okay, now I'm here for that. Now I'm here for that. Or say, as time goes, because I truly believe that a lot of what President Trump is doing and implementing, and if it is for the best, because in all, I feel like what he's trying to do for our country is rooted in the best, but it's just, okay, drilling down in how he's going about doing. It's almost like, okay, I'm trusting you got a vision of that things is going to be better, but what I'm seeing right now is like, okay, things are effed up, but I'm trying to trust that it's going to get to that place that where it's going to be better, and I can be able to woosah and be like, okay, I see what you did. I see what you did. We are in a better place. We have to trust the processes. That's what I was saying this week, trusting the process, because right now I'm not seeing a lot of visual hope, like with my eyes, but I'm just trying to sit in that it has to get better, because I do not see how our nation can get worse, because I don't, child, we in hell, or hell, we might already be in hell, because worse than this, as I say, when you go low, you in hell. Are we in hell already? Because what's lower than where we are? We got fires popping off from places. We got planes coming down. Like, it's just a lot going on. It's the attack, it's just coming from all different directions. And I can only imagine where a lot of people's mental health, maybe. I'd imagine a lot of people's mental health isn't, the best, because they probably already struggled with it anyway. So with what's going on right now, it's not helping that. It's not helping that at all. I don't even know what the kids, I haven't even stopped yet to even ask my 2 kids that are still home. Like, I've asked my son about school and, as far as with, the Hispanic population, what that looks like. Is there high numbers, just to see, like, okay, are they still, coming to school like normal and things like that? And he was saying, he hadn't really noticed a change with that. But I don't think the school is heavily populated with a lot of Hispanics, but it's a good number, because Hispanics, they're everywhere, they're everywhere. So, but us adults who are like doing a lot of the speaking out, I can see that, as a collective, we're not in a good place. And guess what? When you got children who look to you and who you're responsible for, if you're not doing good, they're not going to do good, because it's energy and they're feeding off of you. So we got to fix this. We got to get this together. I want to continue to watch this, everything, see how it unfolds, hope for the best. Definitely want to keep everyone lifted in prayers, especially for those who are now, have their jobs on the line because they're federal workers, happen to kind of make a decision over the weekend on what they're going to do. For those who haven't signed off on the paperwork saying they're going to resign, you got some, they got until Monday. That was the new deadline. But I'm going to hope for the best, keep them lifted in prayer. And the prayer is also that whatever that is promised to them, that the government is able to follow through with that. So if 8 months, of pay is promised with benefits, then it is my prayer that they get just that. And for those who choose to not walk away from their jobs and somehow they still end up losing their jobs, my prayer that they're able to get financially compensated for that as well, far greater than had they chosen to resign. It's the long game, right? Don't they say it's the long game? So I just want everybody, to somehow, some type of way to come out on top. And what that looks like for you is going to look differently for me. I just want everyone to just be out here winning. Be out here winning, making money, having food in their refrigerators, on their tables, being able to put clothes on their babies' backs, keep a roof over their head. Like, it's just the basics. Like, these things are just basic things that I think every human deserves. Every human deserves these basic things. And I don't feel like anyone should be exempt from them. Whether you are a citizen here or wherever you are, this is just basic decency, respect of one another, all of that. So I want definitely everyone to take care of yourselves and one another. Heavy on the take care of yourself, because so often we are pouring our energy into other people, neglecting ourselves, our own bodies, our mental health, and we just down bad. We are down bad. So take care of yourselves. Stay tuned. I got some products I'm going to be releasing soon that's centered around mental health. Some things that I have going that you'll be able to purchase, dealing with like notebooks, journals, adult coloring books, things like that, to kind of help you just pass your time and just to clear your mind. Just, things that you can do away from the internet. As we tell the kids, listen, take a break from the internet, go outside and play, go do something else, read a book. We ourselves need to do that very same thing. So I want to help out with that. So I do have some products that I have created that are sold on Amazon. So when I am ready for you all to go out and support and check that out, if you so choose to do so, I will share the links to those in the descriptions of my content. So stay tuned for that. Stay tuned for that. But I do thank you all for joining this live stream. Please drop a comment. If you're part of the replay game, leave me a comment. Let me know your thoughts. Make sure your notification bells are on so you know when I go live. Complete the poll. Let me check the poll one more time. Let's see. The question has been, do you feel the Department of Education should be shut down? 59% no, 32% yes, 9% on the fence. So it's toggling. It's almost like, some people like, yes, it's let it go, but some people like no. So I don't know. It's a tough one, but I thank you all for joining. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your Saturday. Be safe, love on yourselves and one another. And I will catch you on the next broadcast. Peace. Please make sure you like the video.